Anyone who worked on an Alaskan crab boat knows that. Piss off the captain and swim home. This boy is fighting for his life. He made the captain his father and hooked up with the captain's daughter. Sure enough, the captain was smiling for the next few days. But offend the captain and it's easy to stay alive. One day the boy was packing the crab pot. The captain swung his tail and threw the boy overboard. I don't know how much trouble the boy has with the captain. I'll leave my daughter a widow for the rest of her life. Let's take a look. The wizard was sailing in the foaming Bering Sea. The crab pot on the deck seems to be stuck on something. Jack, who hasn't been seen for several episodes, hatched a plan. That's the end of the story and the start of the film. Thief 225 miles northeast of Dutch Harbor. The crew cast the anchor hook. Nearby crew members do a crab dance for good luck. Nathan's crab pots are in a 500-foot trench. We have 2 days until the Witcher's delivery date. Nathan needs to meet his 31,000-pound quota. If the quota is not met within 2 days, it will be divided among the other ships. With the crane slowly force. The crew is still doing the crab dance for good luck. I pulled it up, and it was full of little karami. All the screening at the sorting machine was for minors. But don't say Nathan's in a good frame of mind. The crew danced the crab dance again. The gears of the crane turned slowly. Turns out the crab dance is a white dance. There's a little karami trying to get away. Nathan's freaking out about this. From the look of it, the crab god might even be a witch. So dolphins are sent to show them the way. The crew cheered loudly when they saw the dolphins. The dolphins respond with calls. Even the well-informed Nathan has never seen a battle like this. The crew felt it was a blessing from God. Nathan looks it up and learns it's a dolphin migration. The debris that dolphins feed on along the way can also attract crab colonies. And the GPS data matches Nathan's theory. Nathan decides to take a gamble with the dolphins. He believed this was the blessing of the crab god. 25 miles east on the Mariner. Jack has gone completely insane. There's been a month where half the quota hasn't been met. And $5,000 a day in gas. And $2,000 for food and feed. He's not going to follow the rules anymore, okay. Where are the crabs when you see them? I go crabbing there myself. It doesn't matter if this place belongs to someone else. The deck crew threw a spear line. Crane gear operation. The crab pot is slowly pulled to the surface. The cage was as shabby as ever. The crew threw the spear rope again. Okay, there are 4 compliant crabs in these 2 cages. Jack's luck was as bad as ever. These 4 crabs won't even get a foot on the gas. Captain Jack and his co-captain noticed the summer bay. The summer bay has been stuck in place for 2 days. They reasoned that the summer bay was experiencing a bumper harvest. Summer Bay, 33 miles northeast. Bill in the captain's room is on the phone to his wife. The anguished crew worked against the waves. The crab pot was pulled up to the deck, and the harvest was quite impressive. That's more than Jack gets in a day. The crab size is also quite impressive. The excited crew cast the anchor hook again. Bill has a pretty fierce eye for crabs. Crabs are not only big, but they don't have many barnacles. They charge a crab for barnacles. Co-captain Hallie calls Bill from harvest. The old boy came up and said, "Can you get an extra boat?" Bill was so dumbstruck, thinking it's like whoring for nothing. Bill was about to say no to the crew and yell harvest. I swallowed back in the middle of what I said. We'll just have to get them over here and stay away from the summer bay. This gave Jack a chuckle. Koo says he did not value cooperation in the past few decades. Until I met Hallie 35 years ago. He's always been on good terms with himself. Hallie was duty-bound to ask him for help herself. So I can't do it myself this time. On the other side, the Northwest is on its way to Dutch Harbor. Old White was quite happy, because I have a grandson on the way. He's also the son of crew member Clark. I said White was so nice to Clark. Turns out it was Julia's cabbages and Clark's. Clark's big teeth on deck can't hold him back. This time the birth was the 4th grandchild or granddaughter of Lao Bai. Although Old Bai also wants to go home and enjoy the family. But he can't get off the boat right now. The Northwest returned to port this time. I submitted the final quota of 24,000 pounds. White has his sights set on the Beldy's 300,000 quota. As soon as we got to the harbor, Clark got a call. It's from his wife, Julia. Now Julia's labor is going badly. It's already starting to bleed out. Clark hurried up to look for White. Told Old White the details. But Old White can't leave the crab boat just yet. If he leaves, the whole crew will go home. He can't afford to lose money. But since Julia's bleeding is really bad, Old White earned his charge after a few words. Just tell Clark to get over there. Old White knows his daughter's character very well. Julia doesn't have the personality to get emotional easily. If she calls and says she can't stand it, then she's got one foot in the door. Old White is dying of grief over this. But he can't do anything for his daughter. I can only pray that my daughter is safe. The picture came to Thief. Nathan's been chasing dolphins in his boat all day. The number of dolphins is not just decreasing, and a lot of dolphins joined in. Nathan looks at the numbers and guesses at least 3,000. Look at this beautiful view of the sea. One has to imagine the charm of the ocean. From the bottom of my heart to admire the uncanny workmanship of nature. This pod is believed to be Pacific spotted dolphins. It usually feeds on squid and mollusks. They drop a lot of debris when they eat. The debris is the crab's best bait. That's exactly what Nathan saw in it. GPS suggests the dolphins ended up in a huge canyon. But Nathan has never set foot in this canyon. Nathan's going to put 60 crab pots in here, with the crab pot into the ocean. The picture came to the mariner. They released 60 crab pots in Bill's waters. Then it's time to catch the first pot of crabs. The crew hurled the anchor hook. The crane began to exert force. The crab pot slowly rises to the surface and looks full of crabs. A full cage pours onto the sorting machine. The crab is quite big. As the crane forces the second cage of crabs out of the water, pouring it down the sorting machine is a feast for the eyes. Then the third harvest is still not small. Bill, these waters are rich in fluid oil. This harvest is for Jack's pleasure. The crew sorted $100 and $200 below. But Jack had the wrong thoughts. He felt that the harvest was not enough. He wants to see what's in Bill's cage. If it's too much, I'll be on Bill's turf. Harley heard Jack say this and tried to dissuade him. He has helped us through the difficulties. You have to respect Bill's decision now. No one will help you if you go this way. But Jack decided it was the best way to catch crabs. It's a crazy plunder of other people's resources. All he has to do is fill the container with crabs. Hallie walked on in silence with nothing to say. The crew on deck were still in a happy atmosphere. 110 miles northwest of Dutch Harbor. White returned this time with another 40,000 pounds of snow crab quota. Clark and another crew member braved the wind and waves to set up crab pots. The rest of the crew are picking up bait. The captain's old White is now very worried about his daughter. He must meet his quota of 40,000 pounds as soon as possible. Get back to your little girl. So he's taking a more aggressive approach to crab fishing, leaving the safer conventional crab farms to a crab farm 100 miles north. It's more dangerous, but it's also closer to White's house, so he could get back quickly if his daughter was in danger. As they talked and laughed, snow began to fall on the ship. It also means Clark is in a bit of danger in the crab pot. The old White in the captain's room was also worried. Clark can't adjust well. What's happening that's dangerous? Watch Clark walk on the crab pot. I was afraid that the courage was really big. Then Clark began to examine the crab pot on the side. The crew hurriedly shouted for the old White breakboat. The photographer, who usually doesn't say a word, was shocked. The crew hurried to find a life buoy. This scared old White to stand up. The crew quickly threw the life buoy to the two men. Fortunately, they were able to swim in time. Clark let the dying cameraman up first. You go up behind me. No wonder White married his daughter to Clark. It's too late to let someone else go up first. Old White saw both of them come up and hurried to the lounge. Start by undressing the bad photographer, and then immediately send him to a hot bath. Then began to comfort the side of the scared Clark. Hold Clark close for fear of losing the good son-in-law. The Northwest navigates this unforgiving ocean, like a crabber on the lookout for danger at any moment. The old White in the captain's room recalled the scenes just now. Hart also cannot stop the fear. He never expected Clark to fall. He was still debugging the map. Turns around and finds Clark in the ocean with a photographer. Just light a cigarette and slow down. The picture turned old White in the education photographer. It's a good thing he reached out for Clark. But reaching out on a crab boat will only kill one more person. To make matters worse, the cameraman lost his camera. The black company is going to dock his pay again. I cried myself to death more than I did. The photographer recalled this scene is also cannot help but fear. I'm afraid he'll never come back to the crab boat again. When Clark was out of critical condition. Good news from Julia, too. She's out of danger. The child was never in any danger. Clark was relieved to hear the good news. He really wanted to go home after this danger. Then the crew put on their gear. Old White is going to drop the crab pot right where it is. After all, they're both feeding the fish and not getting anything nice. Thief 125 miles northeast. The pod of dolphins around the boat is gradually dispersing. The deck crew cast the anchor hook. With the crane force, half a cage of crabs is pulled up. It's not much, but it's big and clean. As the crew said, the dolphins bring them good luck. Talking and laughing, the second cage was also pulled up. The output of this cage is still unabated. It's not much, but the crew and Nathan are happy. After all, the dolphins brought them here. The Summer Bay, 58 miles northeast. They have had a good harvest all day. Every cage produces a lot. The crew was excited. There are enough crabs for each of them to earn $30,000. That $30,000 is enough for the average person to live on for 3 years. For Bill, his dream is crabbing. He feels strong every time he goes crabbing. Even though I wanted a pension of $100 million, But for him now, he just wants to get through the season and then go home in peace and enjoy the family. Before Bill could finish, the crab pot came to him. There aren't even adult crabs in this cage. They're all underage. Bill picked up his binoculars and looked. There are green ones floating on the sea. The Mariner, 2 miles away. This is a cool harvest that's about to explode. You look so full of energy and gay love. There are 63 in this cage alone. 100 for a cage would sell for $6,400. Boy, this cage is worth a year's salary. I mean, that's a hell of a deal for Jack. Then an angry Bill called, angrily berated them for not keeping their promise. Too dirty to repeat for everyone. Well, it's the last 18 generations. Jack and Hallie got sprayed with dog blood. Nathan on the other side remembered his mother. Then he started telling stories about his childhood. Anyway, life was tough when I was a kid. You should also care more about your parents. Picture back on track. The waves are creeping up on the northwest and biting people. But the anguished photographer had to work with the crew. The crew cast the spear rope. The crane slowly exerted force. The crab pot just pulls up. It contains the formal old white heart of the snow crab. The meat of snow crab is sweeter than that of king crab. So even though he's selling it for less than king crab, the picture came to the Mariner. Jack came to his senses after being scolded by Bill. Take the pager and get Bill on the phone. He apologized sincerely to Bill and make it up to Bill with 10 uncaught crab pots. This brought tears to Bill's eyes. I thought Bill was moved by Jack too. I didn't think it was his inflammation that made his eyes dance. Bill goes to the coordinates Jack gave him. There's a lot of king crabs in there. Pour it on the sorter, and it's going to be all over the sorter. Next comes today's financial review. First place goes to the lady. $1.1 million. I didn't think there was a lady number in this issue, because he didn't catch many crabs. It netted more than $300,000. The pressure to repay, let be said, is enormous. In second place is the Northwest. That's a lot of money for $640,000. Third place is Mariner. $630,000. The episode made as much money as the lady. It's like Jack's gutting Bill's life. The fourth thief. $520,000 is the norm. On a normal level. The fifth warlock. $520,000 is in line with the rules. The sixth titan. $480,000. This process is also quite fast. We're half a month away from catching the wizard. It is worthy of being a disciple of the old white. Seventh place, the Summer Bay. The Mariner took all 380,000 of them. Last place, Seabrook. 230,000. That's 5 times worse than the lady. Greg and Sophia need to keep trying. For the rest of the story, the captain and his crew. What other stories are there? Do you want to know what happened next? Anyone who goes to the sky regularly knows how much fun typhoons can be. If you dare to go there, it will be night and day. The old Den was testing his son-in-law to see if he loved his daughter. Get on the crab boat and pick up the new son-in-law, heading straight for the center of a Category 8 typhoon. As soon as I got here, I told my son-in-law to clean the drain. Then he let his son-in-law operate the machine. As soon as they reached the side, old Den operated the machine and gave him a mouth. Lao Deng still won't reimburse him for his medical bills. The son-in-law could only smile awkwardly. I thought my father-in-law was testing me. I think we all know what the old Den's up to. Typhoon 200 kilometers in diameter from Siberia, slowly heading towards the Bering Sea where the captains were. The captains were the first to hear the news. Order the crew to prepare for the typhoon, despite a series of protective measures. But that's all it takes, far from dispelling the captain's concerns. Because this typhoon is no small thing. It has winds of more than 22 meters per second. It's a standard Category 8 typhoon. When it reaches the Bering Sea, it's going to be a bloodbath. Well, then the preface ends and the film begins. 210 miles northwest of Dutch Harbor. They are in an awkward position, right outside the typhoon, even though the typhoon is blowing people away. The workers are still hard at work. The captain's room of the old white sigh that this is simply the biggest typhoon he's seen in years. Even the typhoon sends waves up to 25 feet high. If you do that to the crew, you pay for it. So we have to slow the ship down now. If we go a little faster, we're going to be all over the place. Old White maneuvered the hull as parallel to the waves as possible. The crew on deck are still suffering. The crab pot is slowly lowered into the sea by the crew. The Northwest is now going very slowly. White just wants the crew to be safe. Things aren't too bad on deck anymore. You're just going to go up there if you're not careful. Even the crab pot is taking a long walk. That's when Clark, squatting to tie his shoelaces, noticed. There's a lot of seawater in the drain box. What does that mean? It means the drain tank is clogged. The current washed away the filter plate of the tank. This 1,000-pound water filter, swaying at random, would threaten the balance of the ship. There's a good chance the boat will capsize in this situation. Old White again reduced the speed to ensure balance. Clark hurried into the drain box. The water in there is already 4 feet high. They'll just have to get the filter out now. The rest of the crew on deck decided on a plan. Clark tied the rope around the filter board. It's going to be out pretty quick with the crane. Clark was on his way to the machine barn. Start the reserve pump in the drain bin. With this terrible haugia is also announced to end. But the work of the miserable crew is far from over. The picture goes south to the Titan by the storm. The harvest on deck is old and bleak. I noticed when the show crew shot the Titan. Anderson's harvest fell off a cliff. Most of the crabs caught today are female. Anderson lamented that he caught more fish with his rod than he caught, because crabs like cold places. So Anderson concluded that after the typhoon, these waters are definitely full of crabs. But it's also a way to gamble, because Anderson's delivery date is only 7 days away. The crab pot that came up 3 days later was slightly better. The sailors on deck cast the anchor hook. The crane began to exert force. The harvest looks even worse. Anderson's under a lot of pressure right now. It takes less than 250,000 pounds of crab in 4 days. The sailor cast the anchor hook again. The rest of the crew are putting out crab pots. There's an accident waiting to happen.
Watch out!
The steel cable of the crane broke again and again. Crane cables break twice a week. This gives Anderson the direct red heat of gas. But he's lucky no one's down there. If there's a crew down there, Anderson not only won't make a dime this time, and $100,000 in compensation for employees. I'm suddenly feeling pretty good about being on a crab boat. You make a lot of money and you don't get tired, but you're a bit of a loser. One trip to China might go straight to God. The whole situation is killing Anderson. He had to pull out the super strong steel cable at the bottom of the box. This thing cost $300 at the port alone, thinking this thing can't break again. At the same time, love their own small money. He told the crew how to install it. The crew lamented that the premium cargo was just different. Installation methods are unique. At this time, Mark also said, the cable is too much trouble to install. This is driving Anderson crazy. And then he said that after Anderson scolded him, Anderson's just a kid. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I'm not as experienced as he is. I'd say you've been a captain for 30 years. Is there no effort? Sometimes think more about their own problems. The crew then began to install it. It took no more than a few minutes to set up. Anderson made a note of this mark in his notebook. We just need to find out if he broke the rules and retaliate. The crew on deck set up crab pots. The Titan began to shift position. Typhoon, west-south Seabrook. Sea level that's pretty cranky. Despite this, the crew remained at their posts. Greg officially gave Sophia the helm today, although still in autopilot mode. But it's also making Sophia nervous. After all, it weighs 8 tons. A steel behemoth over 18 feet tall. There's no such quiet time for the crew on deck. It must be hard working in the snow. Sophia knew Greg wanted to cultivate himself as quickly as possible. But Greg's expectations are a little high. I feel stressed a lot of the time. Look at the data on the computer. Sophia with her own shallow knowledge. Analysis shows the crabs are moving west into shallow water. So you're going to drop the pot along the path of the crab. With a plan in place, the crew begins to release crab pots. Although there was a gambling element to the plan. But Sophia doesn't think she can lose. As the typhoon moves closer to the sea, it becomes more volatile. The crew struggled to find the sword in danger. One by one, the crab pots were thrown into the sea. Suddenly, a huge wave came slowly. Sophia quickly reminded everyone to avoid. When Sophia asked for information over the radio, good thing everyone's alive and kicking. Sophia would feel bad if someone did get hurt. She didn't want anyone on the ship to get hurt. She doesn't know if she can catch crabs either. I don't know how long it's going to take me to sit in this chair. He was confused about his future. If you ask me, you're a confused chicken. I need $3,000 a month to be lost. The camera goes to the Titan. The crab pot is full of Patrick stars. I say we just call it Pie Star. Anderson looks like he's dying again. It is not just quotas that are worrying. And Mark challenges Captain's authority. Mark and Anderson are very good friends in private. But it was on the boat that he insulted himself. You don't want to be proud as a captain. If the crew is like this, the ship will be in chaos. There's still only Patrick in the cage on deck. Patrick lives on a hard ocean floor. This directly leads to severe cage wear. Mark is called to the captain's room by Anderson. He showed Anderson the pictures he had taken. The bottom of the cage is polished. Anderson and Mark then plotted a new route. Get ready to head northwest where there's soft sand. Finally, Anderson discussed the disagreement with Mike. Mark realized his mistake early on. Both sides are waiting for the other side to give a step. Anderson has to establish himself. If he loses his authority, the crew will be in danger. After all, this isn't a vacation and danger can happen. A disrespected captain can't guarantee the safety of his crew. 34 miles southwest-northwest. At this time, northwest was in the center of a typhoon. The waves rocked the northwest from side to side. With Old White said now the wind speed is about 14. The highest wave I saw was about 15 feet. No matter how hard and tired the crew still stick to their posts. After all, the bigger the storm, the more expensive the crab. Since the last accident, the crew finally realized the distance between death and them. Usually work is also careful. This is still very gratifying to the Old White. After all, you have less chance of losing money. There's still 230,000 pounds left on the Old White quota. He needs to hurry up and apply for more. With the crew cast the anchor hook, the crane began to exert force. Because the waves are so big right now. So to pull the crab pot up, you need the hull. White has to steer the boat parallel to the waves. The crab pot is slowly pulled out of the water. The Old White man who should not be said has a fierce eye. The first cage was full of crabs. The second cage is even larger. Just 2 cages got the crew excited. After a few days of precipitation, the Old White harvest again. The third cage is even bigger. 162 in 3 cages. I can't even close the mouth of an old man. Well, then there's going to be an accident. Because Old White was distracted and didn't control the ship. The crane was exerting too much force because of the waves. Clark, who operated the crane, got the bad luck. This gave Clark a giddy, dazzling look. Old White was also confused by the sudden situation. Clark's nose was red and swollen. The old man is doing a good job. No matter what dangerous job, put Clark in it. I guess I really want my daughter to be a widow at a young age. Clark was happy to take a hit. It's not like a family doesn't go into the same house. Because there's no way to tell which way the crab is going. Lao by Gone Crispy is surrounded by crab pots on all sides. With the crab pot into the sea. 78 miles west of the Seabrook. Sophia began directing the crew to retrieve crab pots. The weather's pretty good on the Seabrook. Greg in the captain's room is giving Sophia a lecture. The crew on deck cast the anchor hook. Sophia was telling Greg why the crab pot was here. Basically, depending on the crab's preferred temperature. And the theory that Greg talked about. Although this is Sophia's first time in a cage. But the placement was sophisticated. It seems that I usually listen carefully. With the power of the crane. Says she's not stressed, but her face still gives her away. Sophia first cage crab on deck. Open up and see this harvest really live up to expectations. These snow crabs are big, fat, big-headed, and full of gay love. Even Megan couldn't help but praise it. Sophia in the captain's room giggled. The crew quickly threw the second spear. The second cage of crabs is still not to be underestimated. Megan started dancing with crabs. But bad things happen only when good things happen. The crab pot being pulled by the crane hit the bottom of the boat. This gave Greg an instant of fright. Sophia told the crew to put some down and try again. Hit the bottom of the boat the same way. Bad things keep coming. The hydraulic rod for the crab pot suddenly broke. Almost all the work on the ship depends on lifts. It's the equivalent of shutting down the crab boats. Sophia also looks sad. She's never had to deal with anything like this. Couldn't pull up on deck no matter how hard the crew tried. After much deliberation, Sophia, let's throw the cage down. And let the engineer weld the hydraulic rod. We have to figure out how to use it first. Greg on the side gave Sophia a rare compliment. No matter how sophisticated, there's always a downside, you know? So let's just do it in the most straightforward way possible. That's a pretty transparent statement from Sophia. 154 miles east on the Titan. The crew hurled the anchor hook. The weather's not so good here, is it? Anderson's delivery date is getting closer. He confided in front of the camera. Fighting with Mark, he doesn't want others to follow suit. Because he's responsible for crew accidents. So he can't afford to lose his prestige. With the crane force, Anderson's mood grew more and more tense. This is his last chance if it doesn't. Anderson will be fired for failing to meet his quota. Come aboard the Northwest. Old White was just woken up by the sirens of the crew. It seems that the crew's daily life is still very happy. Picture back on track. The crab pot is slowly pulled out of the water. The crabs didn't disappoint Anderson this time. Fresh out of the water and active. This gave Anderson a chuckle. It's like a big box of gold. The second cage is just as full. Dumping it on the sorter is a mountain of gold. You could have had a romance for years. The third cage has more. It's literally multiplied exponentially. There are so many crabs that the sorting machine is jammed. 160 miles west of the Seabrook. The engineer finally welded the hydraulic rod. Test to see if he can move normally. Sophia, in the captain's room, looks at the data. The crabs haven't migrated yet, and now is a good time. With a spear thrown, a cage of crabs came ashore and exploded, followed by a second cage. The numbers are still up, and the crew are cheering. We've had a good harvest all night on Northwest. Give Clark a happy crab dance. Despite a good harvest, the crab population has not decreased. The scene came to Dutch Harbor late at night. The stevedores unloaded crabs from the Titan. Anderson and Mark in the captain's room also cheered each other up as the Titan eased out of port. Come to today's financial inventory. The first to bear the brunt. $1.1 million for the lady. It's a cliff lead right now. The second Mariner. $920,000 is a lot less than a lady. Third place Northwest. The top three at $730,000 are also cliff-like. The fourth Thief. $680,000 is not far from the Northwest. The fifth Warlock. $670,000, and the difference is even smaller. The sixth Titan. $560,000, and we're closing in on the Witch. Come on. Seventh place, the Summer Bay. $490,000 if Jack hadn't stolen it. I think we can move up quite a bit. Last place, Seabrook. $300,000 in Sophia's name. But it doesn't make a lot of money. For the rest of the story, the captain and his crew. What other stories are there? Do you want to know what happened next?